Hi, my name is Kélanie, and I just released my debut album called Spyro. And this is a deep dive into the concept, the creative process, and everything in between. I compiled a binder that combines my whole creative process through making this album, from writing the music, journaling, research, any trinkets, anything that caught my attention during this time, any experiments that I've done. I'm a multi-artist, so I do ceramics, I do all kinds of different mediums, and I did explore different mediums when it comes to this album. So I wanted to just combine everything that I've done and just have exist in physical form. I have another camera set up in here so we can see this close up, so then that way I can open up and go through it so you can enjoy it with me. Fun fact, when I was almost about to release my first EP, I remember having this epiphany at the time. I wrote this EP that was like a cyclical story. The beginning was the end, and it's supposed to go in that same cycle over and over again. I realized back then that, more than a cycle, there is a spiral where we kind of go through the same process, I guess, but transformed. So it doesn't feel like it's the first time, but it is. It also feels like a cycle. The title of the album is called Spyro because of the spirally mind. I have always had this thing of existing deeply in my mind, and how that at times really kept me from living my life, from letting go of the past, from moving forward. And I felt like I just stayed going, through everything over and over again and ruminating on things. And so that was something that at the time I started just expressing those contradicting feelings that I was having as I was trying to get out of that spiral, of that mental spiral, and trying to come back home to my body, to the present. And that's pretty much the journey of the album. So we start at the spiraling mind and we end in our bodies. All right, so let's open this up and I'll just talk through these pages. So my first little page right here just has the track list of my album. I have 13 tracks, including like a short intro and then a short interlude. This right here, I'm gonna have to take it out and talk about it. Back when I was going through it, I was in the trenches, and I used to have this self-concept that I'm broken. I'm broken and something's wrong with me, and I'll never be able to love or be loved or belong, I guess. And I had this beautiful moment in the park, and I'll talk about this a little bit later in the video, but I had this moment when I realized that being broken actually means that you're open, and that life is supposed to break you to really, impact you in some way. And so going through life trying to avoid being broken, trying to avoid being touched, having some sort of friction is silly. Life is going to do that. So you need to be open regardless. And that became kind of my mantra for 2023, which is the year that I've written most of the songs. I would put this in my wall so I could see it every day. And for 2023, every single day I would wake up and look directly at it, and I would be reminded that I need to soften a little bit more, open a little bit more, instead of clenching my fist. So there is a song called Underneath, is number 12 in the album, and that song pretty much talks about that realization that when you're broken, you're open. And it's a beautiful moment for me personally. I have some trinkets in this page as well. I have some shells and some photos of places I've been and me at the studio as well. Moving forward, the concept of the album, like I was telling you earlier. So these songs are about the cyclical process of transformation. They highlight the inner and outer worlds, from the spiraling mind all the way back into our bodies, into the presence. And so this is just some doodles that I've done over the past 3 to 4 years. I kind of went through my journals and I just took whatever resonated with the album, because the way that I write music is freestyling, complete freestyle. And the reason why I do that is because I am very interested in how I express myself when I'm not trying to be anything. I feel like with songwriting, you might start writing a song and think, okay, I want to say this, I want to say that. And that to me feels like that's your awareness. Your conscious mind is like on purpose saying, hey, this is how I want to sound, this is what I want to say, which I think is wonderful. But I've been so interested in my subconscious mind. I use my music as a tool to get to know myself a little bit better. And I feel like with freestyling, I am able to express myself and then find things out about myself. But in order for me to freestyle, I have a daily practice, which I do to maintain my connection with my thoughts, my feelings, my body, my expression. And so what happens is I write every single day, morning pages or night pages, and I try not to look at whatever I wrote. And then when I am in that moment that I feel inspired and that I want to write a song, I just close my eyes and I go. And I feel like because there's been this daily effort of, connecting to my inner truth, then I can just flow, which is really beautiful. So this album is pretty much that. It's pretty much a lot of things I found out about myself during writing this album, and I truly have ended this process of writing this album completely transformed, completely a different person. And I love that I was able to document that into the songs. I mix English and Portuguese in my music because I am Brazilian. I live in Brazil, but I lived overseas for so long and at a very just important time of my life, my formative years of like university and a little bit further. So there's a lot about the way that I express myself, especially when I let go, that comes in English first. You'll see that everything that I've written here is in English and I don't even think about it. I moved back to Brazil a few years ago, so I'm still artistically expressing myself a lot in English, which I feel like is the language that's asking to be expressed. But it really is beautiful if you check this project and you listen to the words that come out in Portuguese, because with the freestyling, you're able to also kind of document my relationship with the languages. And there's a really beautiful song in this album called Find Me, and that song has only one line in Portuguese, but that line is so, so, so strong. It's Eu tenho medo, I am afraid. That's the only thing that came in Portuguese, and I feel like that just showed a vulnerability that was a little bit different paired with the rest of the song, Moving forward, still talking about the concept of the album, this is me kind of doodling about the conscious mind, the subconscious mind. I think integration is a really strong concept of this album. It's about leaving this separation of your mind and your body and integrating everything and being in your body in the present with your mind right now instead of being with your mind in the past. I love this page right here because I wrote this in 2021 and it was, before my EP. I was still releasing like singles at the time, and I just had this major epiphany about my life cycle, how I felt each cycle was an ending. And anyways, it was like a beautiful thing for me to kind of like start really looking at the cyclical nature of our lives of transformation. If you know me, I am a very organized artist, and I have a Notion page for each of my projects, which I love to feed as I finish up demos, as I get a little bit more insight into what that project might be about. And so this is a really cool image of an old Notion page, which I love, and the old demos as well, because I changed the names of some songs. 2023, I had like this major songwriting moment. I wrote so many songs. So at the time I was trying to figure out which songs really spoke to each other and which of them were going to be part of this project. So I had a bunch listed at the time, and it's a really cool thing to have. I also have this really beautiful meditation on the artistic process for me when it comes to, you know, noticing the chapters maybe that I go through. I have like this really creative chapter which I feel like it's invisible, full of sensations. I feel called to write, and I let go, and it's just this process that's fully ethereal, I would say. It's not even from here. And then I start, producing and like really checking the demos and, building and making sure that that's a little bit more structured as a project, as a song. And then I finally have what I call the practical, like distribution, like locking it in, execution of what has happened in that first stage. Another fun fact is that each song that I wrote has been recorded during the songwriting. So in 2023, I did weekly vlogs. I'm not gonna lie, I probably archived a bunch of them, but you can still check them out if you want to. I'll just have it up here for you to click and check it out later. But yeah, every single song I wrote has footage of it, which is really beautiful to see afterwards. But yeah, so this picture right here, it's when I wrote Listen to the Moon. This is where I had an epiphany about action and introspection. I feel like I'm a pretty ambivert person, if I'm being honest. So it's really interesting and important that I train my muscle of knowing when I'm in my hermit time and when I'm ready to kind of come out, and how that works in the creative process, not only in my social life. So this is just a little bit more doodling about the unconscious mind and different thoughts that I have about it. This was November of 2022, and there's a lot written in here that, you can see it in the album. Now, this is Parque Aclimação. When I was writing this album, I still lived in São Paulo, and I lived nearby this park. And if you don't know, São Paulo is like a big city. It has a New York-y type of a vibe. And I, have been feeling so called to nature, and having that park nearby was like a blessing, honestly. I would go to this specific space every single day and just lay in that grass and write my thoughts and cry and just feel my emotions, which I have been guilty of over intellectualizing my emotions, hence the whole spiraling mind. And so it was a beautiful moment in my life where I was able to let go and listen to my body and let my feelings exist. And so this place plays a major role into the album. And it got me closer to nature. I remember there were a couple of trees that I would worship there, that I would pray to there. So I had a whole routine. This part of the binder is focused to the lyrics. So like I said, I write in freestyle, but it's really amazing to see stuff that I wrote in the past that shows up in the song afterwards. So I wrote this March 2nd of 2023, and this is what it says. Words failed me, as palavras me falham. My vocabulary is in need to keep up with all that has been destroyed. I can no longer speak the same way. The narratives don't fill the in-betweens anymore. It's hard to carry conversations, and the only thing I'm certain of is that I don't know. I do not know. This is beautiful because months later, I wrote 2 songs. One of them is called Silence So Loud, and it talks pretty much about words failing you. But that line also shows up in the song Spiral. There are no words for what I feel, so I lose my mind a little. And then there is the interlude called Waiting, where I say, I don't know. The words lost their meaning. And just to give a little context, I think this is beyond the linguistics of English or Portuguese. It's more of what I'm trying to represent here is when you go through such a deep transformation of your inner beliefs, of the things that have governed your life forever, and they get destroyed, and there's space for new perspectives, for new beliefs to show up, that moment It's a little bit of a mind fuck. You don't know how to say things, you don't know how to express yourself. Language becomes this very limited thing just because the connotations and the meanings are not hitting anymore the way that they used to. And something that I love about language is that we put the meanings, the beliefs are in the words. And so when you go through an inner transformation like that, at least my experience has been of complete like reset. And I remember at this time, I didn't speak for a whole week. I just could not speak. It was absolutely crazy to kind of go through. This other one has some lyrics from my song Distance. And I just pretty much say, why do you only love me from a distance? I'm craving intimacy that doesn't exist. I'm yet to meet consistency. Crazy to see that I wrote these words before I actually wrote the song. This is also drawings and mind maps. This is supposed to show my shadow and my light, and I wrote words at the time. This is 2021. I wrote words around it that I thought at the time were my shadow and my light. And I have a beautiful song called In Between that really talks about, the light and shadow and how they exist together, and then also tying that back with integration. I will never forget this day. This was 2021 as well. This is back when I started realizing that I have responsibility for my life, even after so much trauma. It was a really beautiful realization. It showed me that if I didn't see love in myself, then I would never be able to see it outside of myself. And, to change that inner perspective is such challenging thing to do. Oh, now we're going to talk about the album covers. I learned that unfortunately, most people will not listen to a full album project from a very small independent artist. And I've been advised by my distributor to try to release as many singles as I could so I could really give the album a little bit of a chance to be heard. And so I decided on 4 singles to release before the album. And at the time, I really wanted the singles to feel connected somehow. I really wanted to hint as much as I could that they were connected. So a way that I was able to do that is have all the covers have the same style. I reached out to this really amazing artist. His name is PG. He's from São Paulo, and he paints and draws, and he's just an incredible artist. And I reached out to him and I showed him my demos at the time. I presented the project. He really, enjoyed it. He was like, yeah, let's do it. So he's the one that made these covers. The drawings, he actually drew me on paper and then we scanned these. So really cool. I actually have some pictures of that time. We would spend hours talking at his studio, and I would sit there, he would draw me a little bit, and it was just a really cool process. And I'm not gonna lie, a reason why I decided that I wanted the covers to be drawings is just because it's a lot easier than doing a photo shoot and producing all of that. And I am an independent artist with little to no budget, so this worked out really wonderfully. And we were able to, if you look at the covers, every single cover has a spiral in there somehow. So that's really cool. And I love the cover of the album. I think it's such a beautiful cover. So this is like something that I'm really excited to talk about, which is the research part. The way that my creative process works is when I'm in that phase of creation, when I feel super creative, I just go with my gut. I don't look at anything. I'm usually off social media at that time. I am completely immersed in myself and my thoughts and what I feel, because I really want to see what's coming out with as little interference as possible. I know it's not possible to have zero, but and then once I feel like the project has a little bit of bones in it, then that's when I go out into the world and I start researching. And when it comes to a spiral, that is such a interesting symbol that shows up in nature. It shows up in the galaxy. it can have multiple meanings to different religions, and it shows up in science for physics and mathematics. And I just went deep and I read so many books. But what I did is I just put some books that really stood out to me during this time. I read Spirals from Theodorus to Chaos by Philip J. Davis, Spirals, The Pattern of Existence by Jeff Ward, which I love, and Reality is Not What It Seems, The Journey into Quantum Gravity. That blew my mind. So I just gathered little quotes and notes from this research phase, which has fascinated me. And this phase started beginning of 2024 and kind of went through all the way up to now. I'm filming this in April 2025. The album comes out in a month. Absolutely obsessed with learning about spirals, and I could say so many things over here. I'm not sure if this video is gonna be ridiculously long if I go through this. This is like all very like academic and insane, but I really thoroughly enjoyed having this knowledge afterwards. But something to take from all of this is that the spiral is consistently a symbol for life, transformation, and movement. And that's really, really beautiful. Really, really beautiful. So many notes, so many things. I will not lie, I've been falling in love with math because of this. Many notes. I just made sure that I would gather everything that really stood out to me and just have it here. So moving forward to my ceramic pieces. So back in 2023, I was feeling this idea of making a ceramic piece for each song. My idea was to listen to the song as I was playing with the clay and seeing what I felt and what, form would take over. But I didn't do all 13 pieces. I ended up just doing 2. But that's most likely due to the fact that I moved from São Paulo to Rio, and I kind of stopped going to the ceramic studios because I have so many things that I want to learn in my life. That chapter came to an end. I still do some pieces here and there, but very little. At the time, I was literally going to the studio every week. My house is full of the ceramic pieces that I've made throughout the couple of years that I took ceramic classes. So I really enjoyed the fact that I did finish 2 pieces, and I really like that process. So this is kind of like an image of me making this one piece, which I love. I have it right here. I'll show it to you here as well. But this is kind of the first piece. So this is a little bit of a drawing I did as I was listening to the song in the studio. And then this is kind of like what came to be. So this is the piece. Let me show it to you right here as well. I absolutely love all of the detailing. Let me just have it here. So I love all the details. When I chose the clay, I wanted something that I could have the blue over it. For some reason, blue has always been present in my album, but it wasn't until this year, 2025, that I understood why. It's water. Water plays a huge role into this album, both as a symbol for transformation and for feeling your feelings, but also the color blue shows up like that as well. So I did this one practice of adding some small pieces of glass in there so we could have this really interesting result. It gives you a little bit of depth. It gives you a darker color. This is the experimentation. So what I'm thinking of doing with this is just having it as a piece that I can put in the wall. But yeah, so this is the first ceramic piece. The second ceramic piece that I did was create a piece that would represent water ripples, because when a drop falls into a container of water, it ripples. And I thought it would be an interesting thing to kind of express in the material of clay. So this is what I did. This is how it came about. And I will show you that right now. So this piece has 3 terracotta balls. So you can see right here. And the reason why I wanted them to be terracotta was very important. I want them to be terracotta because I just thought it would be fascinating if the drop that would, fall down and create these ripples. How interesting would it be if that was made of terracotta, which to me definitely represents Earth. And that way, it has everything to do with the journey of the album of coming back home to Earth and how being home present can create beautiful ripples. So that was kind of the idea. I did different ones just so they could hang out in the different ripples. The idea is that you could kind of play around with it. And I did a similar thing to the previous piece where I added some small pieces of glass. And something that I love about the way that this turned out, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it, but this piece really looks like water. Here's for you to see a little bit of the piece up front. This is the second piece and I love it so much. To be honest with you, it's a really beautiful artistic piece. I don't know exactly what to do with it. I might just use it as a jewelry organizer maybe, but I love the idea. I love the process of making it. These are some images of me writing the album. And like I said, I have everything filmed. Every single song written is filmed. It's really cool to see these videos after the songs now are ready because you can see the main melody slowly coming and arriving. I think that's so fascinating. So the images. This one right here is the day that I wrote Spiral. I wrote Spiral in bed. Well, a lot of the songs I wrote in bed. But Spiral was a really, really beautiful session. I cried. It was very transformative. The sun and the moon are both dark. And this is me referencing the Scorpio Taurus eclipses that we had in 2023 or 4. I don't know, we had those crazy eclipses, and I am a Scorpio rising, so I really felt it, and I wrote this album recently, almost finishing up my Saturn return. If you know, you know. That's why the song says, to new cycles I go, to new cycles I flow. Upwards the spiral I go. A representation of me being done with this chapter and really entering a new realm. Another fun fact is that Spiral is the last song I wrote of the album. We're at this place where I gathered everything that I've done for my releases leading up to the album. I have been very fascinated recently with adding physical companions to the song releases, and I've been trying my best to have something physical along with the act of listening to the song and the album. So for a few or all of my releases, I did something. For Distance, I made a shirt that said, I don't want to be far away from you, which is one of the main lines of the song. My second release, I did this really cute box, this one right here, with a moon-shaped incense holder. So I just kind of folded the boxing here so I could have that reminder. Valentine's Day, I dropped Slow, and for that I did this fun little play on, will you be my Valentine, yes or no? Baby, can we take it slow? Which is the first line of the song. I also was able to send postcards to people all over the world, which was so fun to do. And that was really fun to do. Then on this page, we have the Find Me stickers. Find Me was the last song I released before the album. It happened last month, and my friends and I just went out to Arnaldo Quintela, which is this really fun street in Rio. There's a bunch of really cool bars having these stickers everywhere, in every bathroom, in every pole, in everywhere up in that street. So that was a lot of fun to do. Also, for Find Me, we did this cute little box right here, which is folded. But inside of this box, we had a monocular with an image, and I really love that because monoculars are so nostalgic. I used to love them when I was a kid, and I was so glad that I was able to do one. The song is called Find Me, so a monocular seemed perfect. Just kind of, I dropped some footage in here because I don't have the monocular here with me right now. But amazing. Another thing that I was so excited to have is cassette tapes of the album. This is the artwork for the cassette tapes, and I saved that here as well just because, so fun. When you're seeing this, I think this is already gonna be out, but I have a video of me listening to the cassette tapes and walking around Mureta da Urca in Rio de Janeiro. You can kind of just play that video and listen to the album with me, pretend like you're walking with me around Rio. And with that, I finished up the binder. I am recording this previous to the item that I'm gonna have accompany the album, but I'll tell you, and if I have time, I'll edit that in. If not, you can check my social media, it'll probably be there. But I partnered up with this really beautiful brand of homemade teas and tea blends, and I'll just add their name somewhere here on the screen. And we've created a tea blend for the album, so you can listen to the album as you prepare and drink your tea. Have that really beautiful intentional moment. I think preparing tea brings in a lot of presence. It opens up your senses. It felt perfect for this album and to finish it up with it. The last page has my thoughts after putting together this binder, which I can tell you, it has been such a beautiful experience. And so having a place that has it all, it has my thoughts, it has my emotions, it has photos and drawings and trinkets, and it's a beautiful documentation of my creative process. And I wanted to use it as a guide as we did this deep dive into the album. I know I am competing with so much that's going on in the internet. So if you're here still, drop a little yellow heart so I know you stayed till the end. I hope you've enjoyed the album. I hope it means something for you. Take the meaning that resonates with you. And with that, I conclude this deep dive into my album and creative process. Thank you so much for watching and being here, and I will see you next time.